Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Brian Saplin here, fat loss strength coach, coming to you today with a video about metabolic flexibility. And what is metabolic flexibility? Well, it is simply the ability to be flexible with your metabolism. And if we want to get more specific to really understand what this means, the three main fuels of the body are carbohydrates, protein, and fat. That's what we take in, that's what we eat. And essentially, the flexibility of our metabolism to sort of use all these fuels whenever necessary. Now, before I take the analogy any further, understand that this is just sort of a concept to sort of understand and a way to explain things, because I like the word flexibility because it's easy to relate when you're talking about muscles and joints, right? So think about the body. We'll just take the squat because that's a really good example, especially with a knee. When you're squatting down ass to grass or trying to squat below parallel, one of the biggest problems why you have knee issues or why you may get knee issues is because as you begin to descend into the hole and you don't have proper hamstring or glute or external rotation in the hips or core activation, what happens is a link in the chain begins to fail. So there's multiple links of the chain. There's the ankle or the foot position, there's a knee, and then there's the hip, and then there's sort of the top part of the lower back. So think about those kind of sections. So that almost like the joint of the hip, right, where the femur connects, and then also where the spine is of the lower back. So those are all these connection points. And when you begin to descend into the hole, you essentially have all this room to sort of get down there. And when you have inflexibility or you have an issue, something in that system has to give. And because the system is very complex and your body is very smart, when you have weight on your back, you don't want to essentially put the weakest thing in danger, and that is typically your lower back. You don't want to lose leverage in your lower back because that's going to give you problems. So one of the best places to lose some joint integrity and put too much stress is in the knee joint, because what happens typically with a lot of people when they don't have proper either core strength or core activation or proper hip activation, what ends up happening is the knee has to dump inwards into valgus, or basically the knees buckle in. And I'm under the opinion right now that when your knee goes in a little bit, you get a little bit more quad activation, which gives you some leverage. But if you don't have proper training or you're not adapted enough, you'll get hurt, because that medial ligament will open up quite a bit. Okay, so I just went on a little side tangent talking about the body because I love talking about that stuff. But so taking that idea of that knee, right, or the flexibility of the muscles that move the joints. Now, flexibility of the metabolism to be able to move be able to utilize fuel. Okay, so a good example right now I'm going to use is someone who's out of shape. I've had some new clients lately who are fairly overweight, very overweight actually, and really out of shape, right? And when you are not metabolically flexible and you're out of shape, when you start to do some exercises, let's say push-ups, or you do some squats, it will make you sick because you're not conditioned, because you're doing something that's extremely a huge shock to the body. So your metabolism isn't able to draw the proper fuels, or it uses the fuel in the wrong order. That's actually a good way of looking at it. Is that your fuel? So right now, most of you who are watching this channel, most of you that work out on a regular basis can do push-ups. You can probably do 10, 20 push-ups with fairly relative ease. Someone who's out of shape, who hasn't done push-ups in a really long time, it will be like doing a max effort rep set on a back off set. So, you work up to like a heavy double or triple, like for me right now, I'm like a heavy double or triple would be like 275 on a bench, and I might back off with 205 or 195 and hammer out 15 to 18 reps, right? So essentially what that happens is when someone is out of shape and they've never done push-ups in a long time, it's almost like they're doing that set of 195 with no warm-up, or almost the equivalent of 205 or 195 with no warm-up, and just hammering all those reps near failure. And what happens? You get a lot of lactic acid production because they're not conditioned. They don't know how to basically make their body function properly, so they get sick and nauseous. Again, this is a bit oversimplified, but you can get my point. So when you diet, right, when you're trying to lose weight, for most people who are not eating their best, or maybe having a diet that's pretty much 60 to 70% from calories come from carbohydrates. The moment you cut carbohydrates to like 30% or lower or something like that, your body is trying to shift gears. And if you're healthy and you're fit and you exercise pretty good and you eat decent, what happens is you're able to be flexible to use fat as energy. Your fat storage, you're able to use you're able to synthesize protein into carbohydrates, which is not something you really want to do, but you want to be able to have that option. And this is, so again, kind of diving deeper into the nutrition hole. Hopefully I don't get too lost as I talk about this. Is like, this is why you lose muscle when you train too hard, too often, high frequency, high volume, and caloric deficit, is because there's a lot of stress on the body. There's a lot of cortisol being produced. You're basically expending a significant more than what you're taking in. So your body is trying to use the carbohydrates. It's using up your carbohydrate stores. It wants to use fat as energy, but because you're training so hard, it can't get enough juice or sort of nitrous from your fat, so it has to find another avenue. So what you get is you get your adrenals. I remember this, but your adrenals start to pump in. You get some adrenal function, right? Some adrenaline to keep you going. And then if you make things even worse, and you are just trying to just really get through this thing of being able to stay alive, if you're dieting too hard, it's not recommended, but you can do some caffeine, a shitload of caffeine. And if you're underslept, then you just start to mask your problems with more caffeine and other stimulants. So where am I going with this? Well, when this happens, when your adrenals pump and you're functioning on adrenaline, your body goes into what is called gluconeogenesis. So since it can't get enough energy from the fat because the caloric deficit is so severe, gluconeogenesis kicks in from the adrenal glands and then starts to break down protein and turn it into energy. Typically, it will start by getting the protein or the stored glycogen in the liver first, and then after it goes in the liver and there's no more left, or there's not, I don't know exactly what the level is, but it starts to tap into your muscle tissue. So again, this is a very slow process. So you have to do this over a period of weeks. If you have 1 week of this, you're going to have decreased performance, but you won't have a really lot of muscle gain. This is kind of why a lot of bodybuilders and physique athletes trying to get ready for stage will lose a good amount of muscle, because why they put on so much weight, so when they cut down, they don't lose as much. This is kind of why it's always better to cut slow. Now, I know I just regurgitated just a ton right there, and I didn't even realize I was going to say all that. But the point is when you're in shape and you're flexible, you're able to use everything I just mentioned. You can go into your adrenal gland. You can use adrenaline. You can use pump adrenaline to function better. And then if you continue to push yourself and have a large caloric deficit, your body can pump more adrenaline and break down protein, turn it into sugar. That's what's happening. Gluconeogenesis, I think that means the breakdown of protein to sugar. I don't know exactly, but that's what happens. And then your body can shift to fat when you're not doing anything, like I'm standing here not doing a whole lot, just talking. But there's a little bit going on. It's a mixture of all these systems that are just kind of pooling into making everything function. And then you have carbohydrates. Now, I sort of leave carbohydrates out of the mix because carbohydrates are a little bit special, that when you have too much carbs and you don't exercise, or you have that was probably be a good appropriate way of saying it. If you have too much carbs and you don't exercise, your body becomes lazy. Obviously it does if you don't exercise, but metabolically it becomes lazy because it's expecting sugar, because it's very easy to break down sugar and use it as energy. So it always expects it. So the moment you cut it out, you immediately feel it, even if you're full. It converts very quickly to being used as energy, or feeling like you're having energy, because it converts easily. Whereas when you cut the carbs out, even if you are this is really I'm not saying you're eating that terrible. For example, if you're eating really, really bad, terrible, not even giving a fuck, right? You cut carbs for 2 or 3 days, you're going to feel miserable because of how sharp of a change you have. But if you're in shape and you're pretty fit, you cut carbs, you'll notice it, but you won't feel as bad, because you're fit, so that's what I mean by being metabolically having a flexible metabolism. So I guess that's kind of what I wanted to say. That pretty much explains everything. Essentially, okay, metabolic flexibility means that you're able to use all the fuels you need to and tap into all these different systems. And I guess that's really it. I know I said a lot there. I'm pretty sure a lot of what I said you've kind of heard before, but I don't know if you've actually heard it in sort of this sort of combination. I hope you sort of take your past experience, because if you watch videos like this, you watch a bunch of other nutrition videos, but you just have to kind of piece it together, and then you make it apply to yourself. It's like, oh yeah, I remember how I felt like when I cut carbs. And then, because I remember this before, talking about me about losing weight and kind of the process of cycling through different kinds of carbohydrate, low carb cycling and low carb diets, I remember cutting carbs abruptly and just feeling like shit, and then I remember putting it back in and then feeling better, training, losing weight, maybe with carbs. And I remember cutting it back, cutting my carbs down again, thinking that I would lose all the strength. And then I found out that I didn't lose any strength. So it's kind of weird how, like, okay, I'm listening to XYZ guru, or I'm reading this book or listening to this person talk, and then I'll use my own experience. And you sort of have to kind of put it all together, because this whole nutrition thing is like talking about a religion. Oh, people will have one opinion of one thing and one opinion of another thing. And it always comes down to, honestly, the most difficult thing that you can really do. And the most difficult thing that you can really do is basically eat and monitor how you feel. Eat, monitor how you feel. Eat, monitor your performance. Eat, monitor your sleep. Eat, and basically that is the only way to learn how to eat well for yourself. There's no shortcut. Again, you want optimum performance. People who train are more keen with their body. People who don't train want a really quick shortcut. Typically, if you're a hard trainer, a hard workout person, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, CrossFit, whatever, you will already you're trying to find a shortcut to strength. And that's totally okay, because that's how we are. We want to get results fast. When you are out of shape, just trying to lose weight and look good again, and you're out of shape, you don't care about getting stronger. You care about not feeling like a fat ass, right? So it's sort of like, I don't know, I kind of went all over the place there. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Click like if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. I thought I wrote about this, but I can't remember if I did. It doesn't matter. Subscribe to my email list if you'd like to get daily emails from me. And I'll see you guys all on the next video.